the monster's lair, a significant home field advantage and the great equalizer for many a dragon, lich, or really any antagonist who plays a central role in your adventure, campaign, or world. On this Homebrew Vault number 1, we are dedicated and solely focused on creating a legendary lair, this week for the mighty stone dragon of unique provenance, geared to enhance your next encounter or inspire your own creative efforts. So join me as we unlock the secrets of world building as we enter the petrified lair of Runescale, the Petroglyph dragon, right now on Riches and Liches. Welcome adventurers, scholars, and especially world builders. I'm Rich and this is Riches and Liches, dedicated to dungeons, dragons, and tales of lore. Today we crack open the first Homebrew Vault, a series I've wanted to create for some time, dedicated completely to the art of homebrew creation. Regular listeners to this channel know that I include a homebrew section at the end of most of my lore videos. What you may not know, however, is that for every custom lair, action, or monster I create and share with you in those volumes, there are about 9 others that are now on the shelf just collecting dust. And I want to share those with each of you. While my patrons will start getting access to these creations very soon online, I don't want to leave anyone out, hence the inception of this volume. So in today's vault, we create a stone dragon variant with unique powers, its associated lair description, artwork and lair actions, and even some environmental effects for one of the great antagonists of the Dungeons & Dragons multiverse. If you like to customize your game world, then this series is going to be one for you. And if you like what you see, maybe join us over on Discord, where we have dedicated channels for you to provide show suggestions for both future lore and, of course, this Homebrew Vault content. All completely free, links are below. Thank you. And now with no further delay, Homebrew Vault 01, the petrified lair of the stone dragon, Runescale. Before we open this vault door, I'd like you to keep a few things in mind. First, the lair of any significant creature, monster, or villain is a game changer. And while that is the design intent, a good DM and world builder will consider adopting a single principle, one that I personally strictly adhere to. While it should go without saying that a reasonable and experienced DM will ensure the party is well aware that a lair encounter is always a tougher challenge, this principle is intended to make sure that I, as the world builder and DM, also truly understand this fact. What I mean here is that when it comes to lairs, lair actions, and any associated environmental effects, or even added legendary powers, it is also very easy to overtune, and to even a lesser extent, undertune an encounter. So being cognizant of this fact and spending time on good faith balancing is critical to the success of your encounter. The CR, or challenge rating system, if you're not aware, is the listed level that a party of 4 would find a particular creature to be of a reasonable challenge. And while this is moderately useful at the lower levels, ask any seasoned DM and they will tell you that it is, at best, an MSRP-like guideline. That is to say, it is far from perfect, and as you scale up in level, it only gets worse. In fact, by the time you are of appropriate level to engage dragons and liches in their lairs, it's much worse, almost to the point of being useless. And I want to be clear here, this is not a shot at or specifically a fault of the game's designers. There are simply far too many variables at play, the most significant of which is the wide range of action economy deltas that result based upon the near infinite combinations of party composition as these levels increase. So trying to apply a flat system with no knowledge of those variables across the board for a standard and typical party of 4 is, well, it's impossible. So what we are forced to concede here is that balance is far more a nuanced art than any hardcore science. And as an art form, there exists no perfect formula. But my advice here is to always remember that you're looking to create a fun, challenging, and fair encounter. And those 3 aspects must work in harmony with each other to achieve that goal. They are very symbiotic. And if any one of them is off, you end up with either a boring, uninspired encounter at one end of the spectrum, or one of anger and frustration at the other, with players that feel they never really had a chance. And that will almost always leave you with an encounter that may be memorable, but for all the wrong reasons. With that out of the way, let's briefly talk about what this series aims to provide, both today and going forward. I want this, and really the channel as a whole, to be as version agnostic as possible. So I'll not be providing any stat blocks for the homebrew creatures or damage or save requirements for the Lair actions or any future creations such as legendary actions, weapons, armor, and artifacts beyond some basic color commentary. I really want to focus on the origin lore, the art, and the special homebrewed powers of these creations. This will in fact make them far more useful as they can be tuned specific to each table. And one last important note specific to the Lair actions and environmental effects that I'll be providing today and moving forward. The idea here is to give you plenty of options, plenty of choice. So while for this vault, as an example, I've created 5 different Lair actions, I would not recommend using any more than 2 or 3 of those, and it's completely appropriate to just use one. Same for the environmental effects. They're intended to give you world-building choices, so you should really only pick one. I mean, I'll never know. Do what you want, I guess, but the design was never intended to have you use everything. Also, keep in mind the use of proper Lair action rules for whatever version you're running. And finally, future vaults will have a bit more content, say 2 Lairs instead of just 1. But level setting expectations in this first vault was necessary, and I need to keep these to a reasonable length to have any hope of a normal production cadence. Okay, I think we're as prepared as we can be, and the Lair is just ahead. Are you ready? You first. In a forsaken corner of your dark fantasy world, a forest stands frozen in time, its once vibrant life now turned to stone. The trees, twisted and gnarled, reach toward the sky with limbs of mineralized rock. The ground underfoot is a shifting mosaic of stony leaves and fossilized creatures, echoing the desperate screams of a time long past. In this stillness, the eerie tranquility is occasionally shattered by the abrasive sounds of stone grinding against stone. This is a place where time itself seems petrified, a bookmark to a forgotten age where a cataclysmic event shook the very foundation of this realm. It is here, amidst the eerie silence and the stony remnants of a bygone era, that an extraordinary stone dragon has claimed its dominion. Deep within this ancient petrified forest dwells the unique, possibly one-of-a-kind, Petroglyph drake known as Runescale, a stone dragon whose bizarre, rock plate-like scales seem to shift and change, forming intricate glyph patterns across its body. These ever-shifting scales resemble stone textured with abstract swirls and smooth grooves. With concentration, Runescale has the ability to mutate its scale patterns into complex figural designs, hieroglyphics, and mystical symbols, similar to what you might find among ancient cave paintings. The dragon's eyes are deep, swirling vortexes that range from the red of molten rock to the cold blues and grays of ancient stone, clearly bearing the weight and experience of countless centuries or perhaps even millennia. The massive dragon glides near silent through the stone trees, camouflaging itself by conforming its scale markings to perfectly match the petrified bark patterns among the stone trees. Only the occasional shimmer of movement or the faint sounds of grinding rock betray its presence. And its wings, though seemingly too heavy for lift, allow it to soar gracefully through its domain, an obvious mastery of some ancient and magnificent draconic power. The wings' movement causing a symphony of stone echoes to resonate with each powerful beat. The petrified forest shows evidence of the dragon's scale-shifting abilities. Many standing stones and large boulders abound, each adorned with ancient pictographs and runic etchings that mirror the dragon's artistic hide. Runescale nests deep in a rocky cavern at the forest's heart, its walls covered over generations into a tapestry of symbolic designs. Powerful glyphs and entire scenes are inscribed through the Lair's walls. They resonate with obvious draconic magic, reacting to the dragon's very presence. Adventurers brave enough to battle Runescale in this stone-forested lair can possibly solve the riddles of its scale markings to discover the dragon's powers and weaknesses. But solving the puzzle may prove just as dangerous as facing the dragon's deadly claws, teeth, and a mineralizing stone breath. Speaking of its breath weapon, Runescale can unleash a breath of mineral-infused wind that has the ability to turn flesh to stone, trapping foes in a petrified state for a time. Mechanically, this should work something like the Basilisk or Medusa abilities, with the one big difference being the physical contact of the breath weapon spray being required as opposed to a gaze, but more on a deadly stare in a moment. For special traits of Runescale, I really wanted this dragon to be unique, so I created an ability called Glyph Shift. Here, the dragon can alter its scale markings to form various glyphs that give it both additional powers and some weaknesses, plus a hint that can be discovered and deciphered by the party. Here is just one example of how this might work, but the options are near infinite, so feel free to get creative at your table. Along with its flesh-to-stone breath, Runescale can empower itself with a Medusa-like petrifying gaze. The dragon's scales shift to form an intricate circular glyph pattern resembling that of a reptilian eye. This allows its gaze to turn enemies to stone. I think it's super important when further empowering a lair creature like this that you also add depth of gameplay that, in addition to granting the creature some added benefit, such as this petrifying gaze, also adds some potential mechanics for the party to uncover and ultimately also help the party, as this is intended to do. So if the party targets and successfully blinds this eye glyph, this will not only disable the petrifying gaze, but will also make the dragon's petrifying breath weapon become inert, and could even cause a temporary blindness of the dragon for a round or two. As the DM, I would be really creative here. First, I'd make sure the glyph glows or is otherwise obvious to the party, meaning that they would have a good chance to discover its presence, that it exists, and that it is somehow empowering the dragon, and that is all in the way you described the scenario. But I would also place it in a harder-to-reach location, aka not necessarily right on the forehead. The idea here is to seed clues hinting that the glyph can be blinded and that it is causing this enhanced effect. And in case your party doesn't have spells to facilitate, say, a blinding action, I would make substances like tars or ochre paints available for your ingenious players to find and smear on their weapon to act as a blinding agent. Failing that, you can have a set amount of damage also provide the same effect. The key here is to give lots of options, lots of choices, so you don't paint your party into a single square. Once the party is successful, have the breath weapon be reduced to only cause physical damage. You know, like having rock shards thrown at you, but no petrification. Therefore, a clear advantage to the party for solving what is a minor puzzle. And that's just the innate dragon abilities. We also have a plethora of lair actions to choose from. I've listed 5 lair actions here, and again, not designed to use all 5 unless you are just one TPK-loving DM. The first is Stone Shatter. The dragon can cause the petrified trees in a set radius at a location of the dragon's choosing that it can see to shatter, causing a shower of sharp stone shards. I would create a simple random table here and have it contain various bludgeoning and piercing damages from low to high, meant to mimic the varied shapes and sizes of these stone fragments that have been shattered, and then rolling on that table for each impacted character that failed their dex check. Next up is Earth Tremor. The dragon can stomp mightily, creating a tremor that causes the ground in, say, a 30-foot long by 10-foot wide line beneath the party to crack and potentially swallow enemies. Again, a dex check is in order, and if they fail, they fall into a ravine, but I'd make it somewhere between 10 and 30 feet deep, depending upon the party level, taking fall damage. Don't make it a bottomless pit, Again, unless you are the most evil of dungeon masters around and you're looking for a TPK, don't make it bottomless. Next up, stone animation. The dragon can animate the petrified trees and fossilized creatures within its lair environment to assist in battle, creating stone servants, if you will, that can attack its foes. And again, you would adjust these based upon your party level. The fourth lair action is called Rock Slide. With a powerful flap of its wings or a strike of its tail, it can cause a rock slide, potentially burying enemies under a torrent of stone and debris. You can make this a flat damage, or you could do as we did with the Stone Shatter ability and create a table of sorts. For our fifth and final lair action, we have Stone Healing. The dragon can absorb minerals from the surrounding stones in order to heal its wounds and perhaps even temporarily become more resilient to physical attacks. In using these layers, I think it's very important for the DM to use good descriptions to convey meaning and circumstance to the party. For example, with the Stone Healing ability, describe how the stone and the stone trees surrounding the area begin to vibrate, maybe even faintly glow, or maybe they create a new resonating sound that fills the party's ears, followed by a dusty, pulverized cloud of stone gravel funneling toward the dragon. Maybe explain that the gravel seems to create a patch where a crack had formed from the party's damage and that it's now absorbed into its scales, thus, of course, healing the dragon. Basically, as a DM, you're always trying to tell the party that healing or damage or whatever action is being done without actually telling the party exactly that. Colorful and cryptic is my preferred method of in-battle communication, but your mileage may vary. I'm just sharing what works for me and my tables. Moving on to regional or environmental effects, I have two from which you can choose. The first, Echoing Stone. The forest echoes with the whispers of the past. Rhythmic clashes of stone fill your head, and with it comes a feeling of disorientation. You're finding it a bit harder to concentrate. This regional effect would add a minor concentration penalty when in the petrified forest. And I would also make sure that the party is well aware of this state by your descriptions before any potential encounter. They would know something is affecting them the moment they stepped into the forest. Alternatively, you could add the Shifting Paths effect. The paths through this stone forest are ever-changing, with visible clues indicating to the party the shifting positions of trees and paths, making it known to them that it might be very easy to get lost and difficult to find a way out of the forest. Now, what good is slaying a dragon if you don't find some unique and cool items among the dragon's hoard of gemstones and coins? I've created two artifacts that you might consider rewarding your players with upon the demise of the stone dragon. The first is called the Shard of the Time-Frozen Tree. A shimmering fragment of a petrified tree can be found among the dragon's treasure hoard. This fragment is actually the last remnant of the very first tree that witnessed the transition of the forest from vibrant life to a petrified state. If this encounter is created as part of a larger campaign, it would make an exceptional plot device, as holding the fragment would share the memories of the forest encased within its fragmented, layered rings, allowing you to give critical hints to move your story forward and providing ample backstory as needed to fit your needs. As for magical properties, I create some fun mechanics. For example, holding and concentrating on the fragment might let one turn into a copy of the tree nearest you, providing instant camouflage in wooded environments. Or perhaps it could provide a number of daily uses of a spell like Stone Shape. Or if you prefer something a bit more tactical, it could provide its own flesh-to-stone powers, or even add temporary stone skin that adds to your armor class for a time. And the final artifact I've created for you today is the Stoned Heart of the Dragon. As the dragon is defeated, it begins to crack slowly. As it cries out in defeat, it shatters and crumbles into a ruin of rubble and stone. But in the center of the rocky remains lies the stoned heart of the dragon, pulsing with magic. This artifact would provide two powers. First, the heart could be used once per day to summon a stone creature to do your bidding. I'm a big fan of random tables here, so you could have anything from a D4 on up to summon increasingly more powerful but yet random servants. Secondly, as the DM, I would make this heart part of a larger discovery of an ancient ritual magic that would allow one to use the heart to create a stone dragon egg that could potentially become a new stone dragon that would be loyal to you. Of course, balance is so important here, but I'd make the process steps and length match the current party level so that the dragon might become available to them at the appropriate time. Overall, this petrified forest lair and stone dragon should make for a very interactive and mechanically diverse encounter, which I personally would find to be a lot of fun as both a player and a DM. But what do you think? Do let me know. I love reading all the emails, the Discord messages, and the comments on the video. That was a lot of fun. I know I say this a lot, but I really hope you enjoyed watching this as much as I enjoyed making it. We shall see how popular it becomes because I'd love to do more of these Homebrew Vault volumes. If you'd like to support the channel, please check out the links below to our Patreon and Buy Me a Coffee donation accounts. Plus, how about you join our community of lore sages over on Discord, where I have a dedicated channel to lore and Homebrew Vault suggestions that I read every day. You can join completely free. And if you think I earned it, please like and subscribe. Thanks for listening, and until next time, remember, the only limitation at your table is your imagination.